This is my 2023 NFL mock draft after week 3. Now, you might be already looking at this draft order and you might be thinking, Peter, what the hell are you smoking? And the quick answer is nothing right now. But this is honestly the draft order if the draft was tomorrow. Believe it or not, yes, the Oakland Raiders have the first pick. And yes, you are reading that right. The Jacksonville Jaguars do have the 30th overall pick. Unbelievable stuff, I know. And usually, through the first two mock drafts I've done for this season, I've kind of made up my own order. But looking at this, I thought that this was too crazy to pass up. And I think I honestly might go with the week-to-week new draft order if the draft was the next day or if the season ended after that week. I honestly like it. It gives us a lot of good ideas. It matches up a lot of different prospects with a lot of different teams we didn't think would be around that area. Like, look at how many prospects are going to be available at number 5 for the Los Angeles Chargers. It's just fun to kind of speculate, and because anything could really happen. This is the NFL, and through 3 weeks we have seen some really, really crazy stuff. So anything is possible. So yes, if you are wondering where I got that draft order from, this is actually the 2023 draft order if the season ended today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First overall pick is the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'm not going to really go too much into all of these picks. A lot of these are self-explanatory. Number 1 overall, the Las Vegas Raiders obviously need some offensive line help, but they also could use some pass rushing help as well. And even if they couldn't, you have the number 1 overall pick and you don't need a quarterback in this draft, you're going to draft Will Anderson or trade out of that pick. So I think that's a pretty simple pick there. You take the best player that is in the entire draft with the number 1 overall pick, and that is Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama. Then moving on to the 2nd overall pick, this is the Houston Texans actual pick. They do have 2 picks in the first round, and their run defense so far throughout 3 weeks has been historically bad up until this point. So the defensive tackle position, I mentioned it last week. I'm going to mention it again. A lot of these picks are going to be repetitive throughout the first couple weeks of the season. So I just ask that you bear with me. And as we learn about new prospects, as we learn about how the draft order might fall throughout the entire year, obviously things will be switched up a little bit more. But I tried my darn tootly hardest to try and switch up this draft order and switch up the prospects for each team here. But number 1 and 2, a similar situation. At number 2 overall, you kind of have to think that the Houston Texans are going to be in the market for a quarterback. I still don't think Davis Mills has looked really bad throughout the first 3 games. They're, 0-2-1, or I don't know how the tie works, but they haven't won a game yet, but they don't look that terrible on offense with Davis Mills. I just think that it's going to be a tough couple years. These 2 picks are really going to kind of show us what direction that Nick Caserio is willing to take this franchise. But I think that first and foremost, the Houston Texans pass defense actually has been pretty good so far this year. Their run defense has been really, really bad. So I think getting a guy that could play right in the middle of your defensive line that is as talented as Jalen Carter is imperative. Then moving on to number 3. I switched up the quarterback here. I'm going to take C.J. Stroud for the Seattle Seahawks here. I think it goes without saying, the Seattle Seahawks, I've said it once, I've said it again, I'll say it all year long, have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. So, you get one of the 2 most talented quarterbacks in the entire draft class with the 3rd overall pick. And then I really wanted to go a bunch of different ways with the Atlanta Falcons. I did want to not take a quarterback. I just wasn't really in love with any of the prospects that matched up at number 4 besides for Bryce Young. So I'm going to still say that if either one of these quarterbacks are on the board at this point in the actual draft, I would be very, very surprised if the Atlanta Falcons do pass up on it. I know I got a lot of people telling me that the Atlanta Falcons really like Desmond Ridder. Yeah, that is true, but you're not going to pass up elite quarterback talent. You do not win in the NFL, in today's NFL, without elite quarterback talent. Is Desmond Ridder that? He could be, but I don't think the Atlanta Falcons are willing to wait around and see. So I think if Bryce Young is there, I think they are going to take him. And then the Los Angeles Chargers with the number 5 overall pick, something I did not see throughout 3 weeks, but it is still very, very early in the season. But I really took this opportunity to really take the best offensive weapon available, and that, for me and a lot of people, is Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think pairing someone like Jackson Smith-Njigba with Justin Herbert could be absolutely explosive, especially with Mike Williams being one of the most difficult guys to guard in the NFL. Keenan Allen still getting up there in age and a little bit more injury prone, but still one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL when he is fully healthy. So imagine having that trio and Justin Herbert as your quarterback. I think Chargers fans would take that every single time. Then moving on to number 6, Arizona Cardinals. Byron Murphy is their number 1 cornerback. I do like Byron Murphy. I think he has been a fine player so far in his career. I think they just need much more talent in that secondary. And I think sitting at number 6, you got to start looking towards the cornerback board here. And Kelee Ringo is here. He is far and away the number 1 cornerback on my board and on a lot of other people's boards. So I think this is a perfect matchup for the Arizona Cardinals. They need to invest a little bit more draft capital in that secondary. And I think it doesn't get better in this situation than the Georgia cornerback. Then moving on to number 7, this is the Philadelphia Eagles, not their pick. This is the pick from New Orleans Saints. And I'm going to go with an edge rusher here. I've done it with the other 2 mocks as well, but I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to say it's going to be Myles Murphy. I think that he is I don't want to say the best 4-3 edge rusher in this class, but if he's not number 1, he is number 2. I think that he has a lot of untapped potential. If you look at his numbers, they don't absolutely fly off the page, but we've seen in years prior that, I've said it last week as well, we've seen in years prior that it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to have production on the field for it to translate to the NFL, because look at Odafe Owa from the Baltimore Ravens, who didn't have a sack in his collegiate career and is a pretty nice defensive end so far. So I think that even though Myles Murphy does have a little bit of production, I think it's more of a he has the talent to be that good at the next level. And moving on to number 8, this is the Miami Dolphins by way of the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers picking high, well, not their pick, but this would be their pick. They're picking high. The unfortunate situation with Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't really look that great either on Sunday Night Football. That was the most ugliest game I've ever seen in my life. But I'm going to go with a little bit of maybe a reach here. I just love the fit. I mean, with all these great players on the board, I'm looking at Andre Carter. I'm looking at Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I'm even looking at Peter Skoronski for maybe, a little bit of offensive line depth. I'm looking at Michael Mayer because Mike Gesicki is a free agent as well. But I really just love the fit of Nolan Smith. I think that with Andrew Van Ginkel being a free agent and Melvin Ingram being basically a 1-year stopgap player, even though he's played really, really well so far, I think it's imperative that they pair up Jalen Phillips with someone like Nolan Smith, similar build to Jalen Phillips as well. And he's another guy that just has all the tools and the intangibles to be an absolute beast at the next level. I think he's a perfect outside linebacker for what the Miami Dolphins are trying to do defensively. And then moving on to number 9, you have the Carolina Panthers, and kind of a similar situation, only in a 4-3. Brian Burns, one of the best young defensive ends in the NFL. You need to pair him with someone that's not Yetur Gross-Matos. And I think that Andre Carter, 6'7", 260 pounds out of Army. He's been an absolute force, not only last year, but he's having a very, very nice year so far this season. I think he's just going to prove that he is an absolute unstoppable monster on the defensive end. And I really like the fit there in Carolina. Then moving on to number 10, I have the Tennessee Titans. And there was also a number of different ways I could go with this one. But the recent injury to Taylor Lewan has really told me that I think the Tennessee Titans really have to start looking elsewhere for offensive line help. Nicholas Petit-Frere has played okay so far, but it's just so thin. Their tackle depth is just so thin at this point. You have to get more talent in there. You can't rely on Taylor Lewan. He is getting older and more injury prone as the minutes go by. I think Peter Skoronski would be a fine addition to this Tennessee Titans team, not only because he is the best tackle prospect, the most polished tackle prospect in this draft, but also if you're still trying to run the offense through Derrick Henry, you're going to need a good offensive line. So I think Skoronski makes a lot of sense at number 10 to the Tennessee Titans. Moving on to number 11, kind of a carbon copy. The Steelers do need tackle depth in the worst way. They do need a new starting, basically right and left tackle, but I'm going to say a new starting left tackle, and I've said it before. Broderick Jones is a little light in the pants area. He's 6'6", 310 pounds. Would like to see him put on a little bit more mass before he makes the transition to the NFL. But I do love the talent, and I love his arm length, and I love his strength that he plays with. So I think that would be a good fit as well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then moving on to number 12, this was another pick that I kind of struggled with because it was a lot of there's just so much talent available to these teams that we perceived were going to be so good that it's just it's such a mouth-watering opportunity. But I'm going to stick with Michael Mayer here. I just think that the Cincinnati Bengals are just going to continue to stack this offense for Joe Burrow and Cincinnati. I think that they realize that they're going to need all the offensive weapons that they can get. Would Paris Johnson make sense here? I don't really know. I don't think so. They have Lyle Collins and they have Jonah Williams. They have Cordell Volson playing guard now as well. I just think they need time to gel. They have looked terrible. They look great against the Jets. Go figure. But I think they just need time to gel as a unit. I think they're going to be just fine. I would like to add another weapon from the tight end position, for Cincinnati. And I'm going to add Michael Mayer there. Moving on to number 13, you have the New England Patriots, and I think we need a dynamic offensive weapon for Mac Jones and company. And, Kayshon Boutte is here, Quentin Johnston is here, even Jermaine Burton is here, Josh Downs is here, but I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. I do believe that besides for Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think Jordan Addison kind of gets overlooked as the second best wide receiver in this entire class. And I really like the fit there. There's so many things that he could do on the offense, and I think it would be a great fit. I think he would immediately be Mac Jones's favorite target. Then somehow the New York Jets are picking at number 14. My New York Jets are picking at number 14. Realistically, if the Jets finish the season and are picking at number 14, I would consider that a massive win. But I'm sitting here looking at Brian Bresee, and listen, I like Quinnen Williams. I think the Jets should absolutely pay Quinnen Williams, maybe not as much as he thinks he's worth. I think they should pay him and extend him. But the fact of the matter is he has not lived up to his number 3 overall draft status. Solomon Thomas has been solid as well, but Sheldon Rankins is going to be a free agent. And we all know what Robert Saleh and Robert Saleh-led defense loves to have that defensive line versatility. It loves to swap out players, loves to keep the players fresh. I think Brian Bresee would be a fantastic addition to this Jets defensive front, who has really, really been a letdown so far this year. We consistently hear every year that the Jets front seven is a very underrated unit, and they just never live up to their underrated expectations. So I think adding Brian Bresee would be a welcomed addition to some elite talent for that defensive line. Then at number 15, you have the Washington Commanders, and I don't know how some of these teams have ended up in the positions that they are, but the Washington Commanders, who basically almost got blanked by the Philadelphia Eagles and did not look good. One thing that stood out to me was the dominance of Devontae Smith, and I think that secondary help is imperative for this team, absolutely. And I've said it before. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I like Garrett Williams. I think he's my CB2 in this entire draft class. He has all the intangibles. He's a great cover corner. I think that's exactly what the Washington Commanders need in their secondary. Moving on to number 16, we are halfway through. Kind of a same pick as last week. I still think that adding another great young freak athlete edge rusher to Aiden Hutchinson would be very, very beneficial to this young Detroit Lions team, and I love Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I'm just going to I literally practiced saying this guy's name in the mirror because I could not say it for the first 2 weeks that I was studying him. But I'm fully confident in saying that Felix Anudike-Uzomah is his name, and he is an absolute force. 6'4", 255 pounds, an absolute beast for the Kansas State, whatever their team is. I think it's the Lions, right? I don't remember what it is. Anyway, drawing a blank on that. But yes, I do think he'll go from whatever these Lions are to the Detroit Lions. So moving on to number 17. And I've been real disappointed with some of the quarterback play from these top quarterbacks. This is slowly but surely, I know it's early and I might be overreacting. This is slowly but surely becoming one of those classes that we thought was going to be elite from top to bottom. But then the top two guys are just separating themselves from the rest of the pack. We thought Anthony Richardson, even though he did have a great game, we thought he was going to be the third best quarterback. We thought Tanner McKee for a little bit was going to be the best quarterback. We thought Will Levis was going to be up there. Tyler Van Dyke. We're just getting disappointing play from a lot of areas, from a lot of quarterbacks. So I'm going to skip the quarterback here. And with Kayshon Boutte sitting here at number 17, I think that the Indianapolis Colts desperately need an upgrade at the wide receiver position opposite Michael Pittman. Don't get me wrong, I think Alec Pierce is going to wind up being a fine receiver, but he will be playing the majority in the slot. I think you need to upgrade that position indefinitely. Then moving on to number 18, you have the Chicago Bears. Once again, don't know how the Bears would somehow end up here, but I think the Bears are lacking in the linebacker department, and I really like Trenton Simpson as a 4-3 outside linebacker. Adding him next to Roquan Smith would add a tremendous tandem to that kind of underrated Chicago Bears defensive unit. So I like Trenton Simpson here. He offers a lot in the pass rushing department as well. He can come down and blitz the A-gap. I like that a lot. And then at number 19, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have Javon Dexter going here. Derek Nottie is a free agent, and as much as I think Derek Nottie is a good player, I think if you have the opportunity to upgrade at that position next to Chris Jones, I think you absolutely take it. And defensive line is right here. And then I think Javon Dexter is going to slowly come up the ranks and be more of a household name as the season goes along. And then at number 20, you have the Houston Texans. And I said it before, the run defense really has to take precedent over everything because they are just getting carved up everywhere on the ground. So we added Jalen Carter with the first pick. With the second pick in the first round for the Houston Texans, I'm going to go with Noah Sewell. And Noah Sewell is a really nice old school linebacker. He's huge. He's 6'4", 250 pounds. He's a downhill run stuffing linebacker, and that's exactly what this Houston Texans team needs. Then moving on to number 21, you have the New York Giants, and it's about time that the New York Giants go out and get a number one wide receiver for whoever is going to be throwing the football. They have talent at the position. I mean, Sterling Shepard just suffered another season-ending injury. I feel terrible for the guy. Kenny Golladay seems like he doesn't want to be there. Kadarius Toney is a no-show half the time. I don't really know what to think of this wide receiver unit. I think it's just a massive letdown. I like Quentin Johnston. He is a man that is just electric with the football in his hands. And I know that this is kind of similar to what Kadarius Toney is, but I think Kadarius Toney is more of a gadget player in the NFL, where I think Quentin Johnston can stretch the field and get open deep. And that's just something that we haven't seen Kadarius Toney be able to do or be allowed to do so far in his career. Then moving on to number 22, you have the Buffalo Bills. And, Micah Hyde is out for the season. He's getting older. Jordan Poyer has already missed a game. He is getting older. They have to address the safety position before it goes from a massive strength to a massive weakness. Brandon Joseph, best safety in the class. I think this just makes perfect sense here. I think I had him going to them in my first draft, and then last week it was, I think it was Detroit, but now I'm going back to Buffalo just with the recent injuries and them being at number 22, which I don't think is where they will end up drafting. But I think this is a match made in heaven at this point in the first round. Then moving on to number 23, you have the Dallas Cowboys. And I like the secondary options here for them. I know, Trayvon Diggs is probably the most polarizing defensive player in the National Football League. On the other side of him, you got some free agents coming up as well. I like the versatility that Antonio Johnson brings. He can play safety. He can play cornerback. He could just fit into this Dallas defense wherever Dan Quinn needs him to play. And I think that when you need secondary help, versatility is key. So I'm going to go to Antonio Johnson here to Dallas. Then moving on to number 24, you have the Green Bay Packers. And I know I've mocked Josh Downs here before multiple times. I'm going to get an interior offensive lineman in here. I'm going to get Cooper Beebe here. I think Royce Newman and John Runyon have been very serviceable players so far. especially for where they were drafted. But I think Cooper Beebe is the best interior offensive line. I mean, it's a toss-up between him and Andrew Voorhees. I was pretty high on Andrew Voorhees last year. I thought he was going to come out. He did not. I think Beebe offers up some much-needed protection in the middle of that offensive line for aging Aaron Rodgers. So every year I draft a wide receiver to the Green Bay Packers, it never happens. So let's get creative. Let's think outside the box. I think this would be a good fit. Then moving on, number 25, secondary help for the Seattle Seahawks is apparent. Eli Ricks is still here. No brainer here. Moving on to number 26 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I said it before, a lot of these quarterbacks have been disappointing. I still think, don't get me wrong, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after Tom Brady inevitably retires after this year, they're going to go out and probably try and trade for a noticeable quarterback. They're going to try and trade for a younger franchise guy. And the reason why is because this team is set up to win up and down the roster. So you can't go through rookie growing pains. But at the same time, I do think that if a rookie quarterback was to find himself at the reins of this offense, I think he's in very, very good hands. I think this is an ideal situation for a rookie quarterback to fall in. So let's put Tanner McKee in there. It's a need, 6'6", 230 pounds, mobile, can throw the football, very accurate, very smart as well. I think it's a good fit. Moving on to number 27, you have the Baltimore Ravens. Kind of the same issues here as weeks past. I think they desperately need an influx of talent in the cornerback position. Cam Smith still here, one of the more underrated players in this 2023 upcoming draft. I think he's kind of flown under the radar with the depth of talent at the cornerback position. Then moving on to number 28, you have the Minnesota Vikings. And similar situation, a guy that maybe isn't in the top 32 or 31 for this draft yet, but he will definitely make his way up there, is Joey Porter Jr. I know, look how far down he is. He's ranked 74th as a prospect, but he's a beast. And if any team needs cornerback help, it is the Minnesota Vikings. So I think Porter Jr. is going to be a riser throughout the draft process. I think that's a really, really nice fit for both Porter and Minnesota. And you have two really nice young cornerbacks bookending each other in Porter Jr. and Cam Dantzler. Moving on to number 29, this is the second pick for the Detroit Lions in the first round. They picked, where did they pick, 16? Yeah, they picked at 16, now they pick at 29. And I have second thoughts about this. I had Jacqueline Roy here. I don't know if I want to go two defensive linemen in the same in the first round though. I think I'm going to switch up my pick live on camera right now, and I'm going to go with Jack Campbell. Actually, it's kind of a similar situation. I know 3 linebackers in the first round kind of seems crazy, but Jack Campbell is the best pure interior. I shouldn't say interior. Inside linebacker in this draft class. And I think that if there's one area that the Detroit Lions really, really struggle in defensively, it is that middle, that medium between the defensive line and the secondary. It is the linebacker position. I mean, don't get me wrong, Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez has been okay so far. I think you just need someone that really comes in there and could just be that 130 tackle type of guy every single year, like a Jordan Brooks type of player. I think Jack Campbell could absolutely be a Jordan Brooks type player for the Detroit Lions. I think it would be a good fit. He seems like a Dan Campbell guy, not because his last name is Campbell, because he's a good defensive player. Maybe because his name is Campbell too. And moving on to number 30, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 30. Okay. And this is the second to last pick. Paris Johnson is still here. Jawan Taylor has been horrible throughout his career up until this point, and he is going to be a free agent. I think they just signed Cam Robinson to a 3-year extension, and you don't have to pay Jawan Taylor, and you put Paris Johnson in at the right tackle position. I think it's a seamless transition, and you get better at the position. And then with the last pick in this first round mock draft after week 3, no brainer. Bijan Robinson, in reality, is probably not going to go this late in the first round, but stranger things have happened. Bijan Robinson's still sitting here. Miles Sanders is a free agent. I believe Boston Scott is a free agent as well. You get a true 3-down workhorse running back just to add to that absolutely explosive Philadelphia Eagles offense. And I love that fit. So that was my after week three, 2023 NFL mock draft. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like and a comment if you did enjoy, and please subscribe to the channel for videos just like this. I just put up my first player profile video as well. It was, of course, Will Anderson Jr. I thought it did very, very well. I thought it was insightful. These videos are going to be relatively quick, just going through the strengths, the weaknesses, the scheme fits, player comparisons, team fits, and overall draft projection of the top prospects for the NFL draft. So let me know what you guys think of that. Also, subscribe to the channel just to not miss great content like this. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.